Hello, everyone. Today we are having a guest host and also a guest. So our guest is Valdo Brashkin. He's a senior GRC specialist all the way from the US. Then we have Emily Maymara, who is going to be our guest host. So she'll be taking part with asking the questions. Then our usual team here at the Cyber Weekly, me, Angela. Yes, so we are pushing. So, yeah, without further ado, welcome, Val, to the show. And could you tell us a little bit about yourself? And yeah, we'll get on from there.
Sure. Thank you, Gio. Happy to be here. I've been in cybersecurity space for 20 some years, most of it in some shape or form related to governance, risk, and compliance. A lot of it is spent working for a defense startup on mainly US Navy submarine cybersecurity contracts and doing kind of pre-FISMA cybersecurity compliance work. A lot of different solutions, product management, program management. Spent 5 years with Cisco Systems in various cybersecurity management roles. Some of it supporting their compliance initiatives. And then my last two roles, I've built governance, risk, and compliance programs at startups. First at ForgeRock, which went IPO, and my most recent one with No Name Security that got acquired by Akamai. And I've helped migrate a lot of our tools of process into Akamai systems. And once that's completed, now I'm doing my own thing as a partner in the GRC consulting firm called Ava Consulting Solutions.
Wow. So, what is GRC and why is it important in businesses today?
So I think of G for governance, like an effective management that the company has a good plan, good strategy to manage risks and really stay compliant with what's needed. And when it comes to risks, it's things that can affect the company's bottom line, really like material issues that the company understands and has a handle on. And compliance are it consists of obligations that usually come from outside, so regulations, customer requirements, partners, sometimes vendors, things that the company has to do to stay in business. And generally, we think of GRC, at least in cybersecurity, as kind of like cybersecurity focused field. But in my experience, it overlaps so much with other regulations, other frameworks, from privacy, from other legal areas, and or other technical regulations. So I think of GRC as really the way to ensure that the company can stay in business with good insights on internal controls and also supporting the customers and prospects to understand that, hey, you can trust us. We're good at our cybersecurity and other practices, and we should do business together.
Exactly. And building trust. Val, could you please help us understand how an effective GRC strategy is important in managing risks and in meeting compliance requirements?
So for companies that do GRC well, it can really act as a market differentiator. It can make your go-to-market operations faster, more effective. So you're able to convince your prospects that, hey, we're here to stay. We know what we're doing. You can give us the thing that you care about the most, your data. We'll protect it. We'll make sure that nothing bad happens to it. And it can also make your sales operations a lot more efficient. You'll be able to demonstrate to customers that, hey, this is what we do. This is how we do it. It's externally validated, so we're not just saying we're doing a good job. We have this evidence to show that we are. But also on a practical side, from the business perspective, for an organization, we're able to identify things that can really harm our business goals, and we're able to present that to the business with the recommendations of what to do about it. So it helps the company kind of stay proactive on things that can really impact materially, its bottom line or its ability to function in a particular area or, across the industry overall.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Val. Yeah, up to this point, we've understood what GRC is. We've understood the strategies that help in managing risks. So my question to you, Val, is kindly share a GRC horror story. What would keep maybe a CISO awake? Well, what I'm trying to ask is, what are some of those examples of poor governance practices that have led to significant problems for organizations based on your experience?
I think what probably keeps the CISOs awake these days is all the generative AI systems that are being used and that they don't know about them or how they're connected to sensitive corporate data or systems that the CISO has no visibility on. But if we look across the industry, we see a lot of issues that have come up from our organizations throughout the years. Like if we look at Meta, Facebook as an example, it doesn't look like they have a good privacy governance program, so they keep getting hit with these privacy fines across EU. We're seeing organizations like OpenAI and others in the Gen AI space that are also being hit with privacy or copyright lawsuits that it seemed like they never had a good GRC program to look at the risks of how they're gonna market, how they're gonna sell, how they're gonna use this data without getting people's consent and the right intellectual property to use the business. In the specific cybersecurity context, we have the SolarWinds breach that impacted thousands of organizations and the U.S. federal government, and they were fined by the SEC. There were other cybersecurity vendors like Mimecast, Checkpoint, and other really important vendors that were also fined by the SEC because they didn't treat the SolarWinds like their vendor breach properly, didn't have the proper security controls. And of course, we have things like the United Health huge data breach recently, where they lack fundamental cybersecurity controls like multi-factor authentication that enabled this kind of massive breach to happen. That if they had a good GRC program, this would be probably the first thing that would be identified as a critical risk, and this should be prioritized and remediated, as they've been missing this for their entire existence, which really doesn't make a lot of sense if you look at it from a cybersecurity risk perspective. But it's when you have organizations that don't have a good GRC program, then these things can fall through the cracks because it's not business priority and nobody's looking at it.
Okay. Thanks so much for that elaborate answer. Maybe you could just try and explain to us what has the role of GRC, how has that role of GRC evolved with the increasing digital transformation taking place in many organizations? That is, you've already hinted on some of those technologies like AI. Yes, kind of, if you could just help us and shed some more light on that.
Sure. So we're finally moving as an industry beyond the Excel spreadsheets and kind of checkbox as a compliance practice, that we're having automation into the GRC space, so we're able to collect a lot of evidence from various systems through API plugins. So we have more visibility on almost continuous basis, as opposed to having these, quarterly, semi-annual, annual audits where we find out we have issues, but we've already had this issue potentially for a year, whereas now we're able to see it in almost near real time. And it's also helping us to collect a lot of the evidence without asking people to take manual screenshots or, do screen sharing and things like that. So it's saving a lot of time, and it's able to highlight the risks in a much more proactive manner that we don't have to wait for this audit or this customer regulator to point out that, oh, wow, we don't have MFA deployed, or, none of our staff have completed their phishing awareness training, or, we don't have EDR, or, something else deployed across most of our endpoint devices and similar. We can get it through this GRC, tooling that's pretty common now in the industry, that if you're still doing audits manually and collecting evidence, then you're definitely behind the times. It's finally caught up to even the biggest enterprises and the kind of like the oldest GRC tools vendors. They're finally offering this evidence collection as fundamental sort of right for their customers to have.
Sure. Thank you so much, Paul, for that answer. And in our recent security review, we looked at new regulations like the GDPR, where Meta was fined for breaching data privacy, even just allowing people the right to forget their data. When someone deactivates an account, their Facebook profile picture will stay on. And such a big organization to be falling short goes to show that people are not really taking this seriously as they should. And I would like to know what are the key technologies and tools that are used in implementing efficient GRC and frameworks, GRC frameworks, sorry.
So I don't want to promote a particular product. I'm just happy to say that we now have hundreds of these vendors, even the ones that I didn't like at all, because they were kind of like dinosaurs, and even though they were technology, they still gave the internal and external auditors the same kind of Excel or checkbox interfaces that doesn't really save a lot of time for people. But I would say most importantly, to be able to connect to all of the most common cloud SaaS platforms, and ideally on-premise software as well, where they can collect evidence. And then the second most important part is having the most common cybersecurity controls frameworks available that are mapped to the controls, so that the company can look at, hey, we have to meet, I don't know, SOC 2 because we're in the US market. We have to meet ISO 27001 because we're global. We have to meet the EU DORA and AS2 because we're in Europe and we have financial customers. We have to meet, I don't know, the Australian, I forget their FedRAMP equivalent, but anyway, all these different regional requirements, most of them overlap in some fashion, right? So we shouldn't have GRC professionals looking at these manually and seeing how we're doing. It should be automated into, okay, these controls overlap. We've already tested it. We have evidence collected that we're meeting these controls. These other ones we don't have mapped, or they're not in our existing control set. So we'll work on them. So it should be this enabler to really streamline all of the requirements that the company has to meet across the globe, at least the most important ones, and give the GRC staff the tooling to see, where the variants are and what's existing, already covered and compliant within the environment, what the gaps are.
Sure.
Interesting. So how does the robust GRC framework contribute to decision making and strategic planning?
Well, it helps the company make better decisions, right? It saves them money where they don't have to do these manual audits, which I'm sure Emily can appreciate. They don't have to spend all this time, right, looking at screenshots or saving all these files and redoing things over and over, the same thing, kind of really labor intensive manual labor type work. But most importantly, again, with the quicker insights into the evidence being collected and what the coverage is for the controls are important to the organization, they can see what the real risks are and what's outstanding, and help business prioritize that. Okay, these gaps, like, okay, maybe we don't have MFA, or maybe our source code is exposed, or everyone in the company has access to the source code, things like that. You'd be able to see right away with a good GRC framework implementation. And also, identify that, okay, if we're looking at different markets, we can look at the compliance frameworks that exist for that market. And if we see one that we have a significant overlap with already that we're already covering, maybe that's the market we target first because we have a good story there. And something else where we have to do a lot of work to catch up and demonstrate to our prospects and customers there that, you know, we're compliant in that market, maybe we'll put it off until a later time frame. So it's a really good, you know, visibility and evidence-based approach to show the business, okay, these are the gaps or the opportunities that we can help you target with this effective GRC program.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Val. We are learning quite a lot about GRC. So with all that said, Val, what are those steps that you would prioritize for a struggling organization? What am I asking? If you would kindly provide us with some practical steps for a business or organization that's looking to improve their GRC processes.
I would start with creating your own common control framework. Maybe taking, you know, a very rough level like ISO 27001 as the baseline, looking at which things that you already have or the ones that you don't have, how much risk they carry, and build your GRC program around that. And then look at other frameworks that overlap with what you have or where you want to go, and see how much work is there. You know, set up this automatic evidence collection for the systems and scope for your internal audits, for your external audits. Think about simplifying your training and documentation, right? So don't write policies because you have to or that nobody will read, right? Just like training, right? If you make everyone take, for instance, business continuity train, which I had to do at some big companies I won't name. It doesn't make sense unless they're actually doing BCDR stuff for that organization, right? So make it targeted and as effective as it needs to be. Look at the right markets that you can effectively pursue with your current GRC program and how those frameworks map to your existing control sets and, you know, how far away you are from a good story, how easy it would be. Look at things you can automate as much as possible, processes, not just the evidence collection. So for instance, if you're doing a lot of audits, whether it's internally or externally, you try to move them to be on the same schedule so that you can reuse the evidence as much as possible and not, you know, have to generate it or ask the staff to do it the same thing, you know, 3 months apart or something. And where most organizations really fail are in the supply chain and third-party risk management practices. Again, we've seen with United Health, with SolarWinds, and elsewhere. And so, you know, work with your procurement program, look at the kinds of risks that the vendors have for your organization, the kind of data access they have, and really make it targeted to your specific needs and risks. You know, try to move away from this questionnaire-based approach to third-party risk management, but there are a lot of tools, a lot of automations that you can use to get insights into where your data is going, who has access to it. Maybe these vendors have too many permissions to things that really matter to your business, and focus on those risks as opposed to, you know, kind of like blanket approach. You know, GRC is very flexible and yeah, it can be a lot, but at the same time, you don't have to hit every compliance requirement right away, right? You can build a long roadmap. You can focus on the things that matter right now that can help you break into a different market or expand your business, you know, soon and work on those. And you can build a good story for your customers and prospects, even if you're not meeting all of these requirements, as long as you have, you know, this approach, you have demonstrable evidence, you know where you're going. I think you can make a lot of success, even, you know, not being 100% compliant.
Sure. You know, there's a guest that came on the podcast that said that with the continuous trainings, they found that people are now scared to do their work because now they are highly alert. So they were so slow with their work. But it's so funny that, you know, it's continuous learning is quite important. Anyway, Val, apart from automation, how else can artificial intelligence and machine learning enhance GRC processes?
So if we talk about training, right, they could probably make our training a lot more targeted and fun, maybe gamified, so it's a lot more engaging for people. But really, most importantly, is that it's practical to what they're doing, right? So everyone should be worried about phishing attacks, but not everyone needs to know about, I don't know, privacy, right? Like sales and marketing need to know, okay, how do we target our prospects and these privacy heavily regulated locations like, Europe or, Japan or elsewhere. But not everyone in the company needs to know that. So AI can help build that training, kind of fine tune it to what the real risks are. It also, a lot of the GRC tools are experimenting with AI in terms of identifying the risks and how impactful they are based on the evidence they're collecting, based on those controls, coverage, and what the gaps are. And I think on a very simple use case, but something really neat as an industry, I'm finding that most organizations are really terrible at reading like SOC 2 reports or vulnerability tests or just things that again can be viewed as check boxes in our industry as opposed to the real value they provide, because there's a lot of variation between the reporting, between the depth that goes into it, depending on the audit firm or the penetration testing firm or methodologies used. And so AI can really help companies like analyze those reports and highlight not just, okay, this SOC 2 report listed, I don't know, like 20% of people didn't take the training. Okay, that might be not great, but it could also be missing a lot of the controls in there. Maybe the SOC 2 didn't even test for business continuity, didn't even test about vulnerability assessment or penetration testing. And so like artificial intelligence can help companies understand that, hey, I'm assessing this vendor or I'm looking at this particular report and it's missing these critical things that I consider critical in my business. So it can help them prioritize risks from the vendor perspective based on analyzing this kind of documentation that, unless you're well versed into what they look like, what the variants are, and what's really important, it's hard for like a TPRM professional to really look at it and say, oh, this looks good, or actually it's missing a lot of these things, because they have to read it right very thoroughly and kind of have a checkbox to see, okay, does it have this and this and that? Or if it does, is it, because it's about the wording. So sometimes a report could say, yeah, they do vulnerability scanning, but it could be written as like regular vulnerability scanning. So what does regular mean? It could mean as much as like annual, right? Do I really care that a vendor scans their web or whatever their service once a year? That's not great practice, even though it's written regularly. So AI tool could highlight that, like, hey, this is vague. Look into it, check with the vendor, get some evidence, make sure, is this regularly as in like weekly or maybe monthly, or is this like quarterly or annually, right? So things like that, I think artificial intelligence and machine learning can really help us.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Val. You've literally explored a lot when it comes to GRC. Before we go into the parting shots, and yeah, what inspired you to actually join GRC, and what has kept you still in GRC? Because there are definitely so many paths in cybersecurity and IT in general. Why this? And if someone is wanting to join GRC, what would you advise them to do?
Great question. I think my first decade, I didn't even realize I was doing GRC. I was just doing something I believed in and I thought it was important. It's really only in the last 6-7 years that I've dedicated myself to the GRC space. And it's because I feel like in a lot of ways, we're the protectors of the world, just like cybersecurity professionals are, but we're there to build this trust and to build this visibility to support the cybersecurity teams and privacy teams and legal teams to, make things better for them, but also for the organizations. We're kind of the if you think of like thermometers, for how well the business is doing, how protected it is, and we're able to show the business, hey, you have a fever. This is gonna really hurt potentially. We need to do something about it. And so much about the GRC space, it's about integrity, it's about trust. Like we want our company's customers to trust us, but also we're this trusted partner for an organization. We want to help the business do better. And as much as like cybersecurity a lot of times is viewed as the Department of No, for better or worse, we're able to help prioritize the right no's for cybersecurity. We're the Department of yes, but, or yes, this is how you do it, where we help the business make better decisions that are good for their long-term success. And I think that's really what's kept me there. Plus, the GRC space, it's so varied. There's so many areas to it. It could be very technical, you could be very people-oriented, you could be very process-oriented. There's so many areas where whatever your strengths are or whatever you're interested in, you can contribute to the industry. And so it's always a place where you can learn more. As a GRC professional, I find that we're probably the best place in any company to traverse horizontally across the organization to really learn about how each business functions, what their needs are, what their concerns are. So again, more about learning about how a company operates, but also because we have this visibility across the whole company, there's a lot of things that come up that we notice even outside of GRC space that we can help with or bring teams together that, hey, we talked to this team and they're struggling with this approach or they're using this technology. Looks like it's something this other team could benefit or learn from, or maybe they've already implemented. We can bring them together, even if it's not directed to, GRC specifically. So I think it's, ability to make an impact across the whole organization, the continuous learning, the different approaches that could fit anyone's interest and passions. And most importantly, just like in cybersecurity, I find that people are really good. Like people that work in GRC, just like in cybersecurity or privacy, like they care. They want to make the world a better place. And it's very, it's very inspiring to be there surrounded by people that really want to make a positive difference.
And to someone who is just getting started, what things would you want them to, or trainings or platforms where they could, get their feet dirty?
Yeah, look at things are available online for free. Obviously, Asaka is a great resource. A lot of these organizations offer free services or free memberships, for or student based fees are very affordable. So you can learn a lot about the approaches. I would say understanding at least one cybersecurity framework is really good. Whether you pick ISO 27001 or I don't know, PCI DSS, or if you want to just really dive into NIST and look at 853 or 871 set of controls, that's really a good start to kind of get a overall picture of what cybersecurity practices and like good governance looks like. But also think about what it is that you did before that could be translated into GRC space, the things that you really like, you're really good at, or you want to pursue, and chances are, you'll be able to translate a lot of that into GRC and not come in as, a complete newbie, so to speak. And also just like, even if it's not with a startup, there's all this work that needs to happen, and a lot of it is, pretty manual or not that much fun, especially for seasoned GRC professionals. So, if you ask your organization that, hey, what can I help with? What are the things that you really don't like doing or don't have time for, or you need somebody to take a, fresh look at, chances are there's going to be a lot of things that are like, oh yeah, we've wanted to do this, but nobody really wanted to take this on, or it's just so like soul destroying, like manual labor kind of practice. We want to have a better process, or just need somebody to do this. And at the sort of the bottom of the pole is all these security questionnaires type things that unfortunately mostly enterprises still deal with for third-party risk management, and that if you want to do business with the organization, you usually have to review and answer them, and nobody wants to do them because it's, not great. Even if you have AI machine learning automating a lot of the answers, chances are it's going to need somebody to review it and approve it. And so that's probably the easiest way to get in there, because I don't know a lot of people that deal with questionnaires and enjoy it. They're always going to be happy for somebody to take that on. But also, anything that helps the company with visibility. So either like interviewing or working with other teams to understand how they work and how they can get more data into GRC or cybersecurity, or any kind of technical integration that, hey, if you have any, IT knowledge, DevOps, or anything else that you're like, okay, how do I help GRC get some of this data, get some of this visibility into what's happening within a particular tool or business unit, and that's also another really great way to contribute and get into this space.
I feel this one is a part where Emily should also start advertising ISACA as a member, as a board member even. So
Yes, thanks a lot, Val, for all that knowledge that you've imparted in us, based on the experience that you have. I have been edified, and I'm sure many people will be edified by this. Yes. As our host has mentioned, yes, I am a director at ISACA, the Kampala chapter. Yes, so you mentioned that already in your submission. And yes, of course, part of the other tools, we have the COVID frameworks that also help in GRC management and all. Yes, so thanks a lot. Thanks for sharing that. Just as we get towards the tail end of this, you just take us through some parting shots, and you give us your GRC mic drop moment. If you don't mind sharing that.
I think I had my GRC mic drop moment last summer when I got a chance to present at the ISACA GRC conference in Austin, which was really fun. But the main thing to think about GRC is, I guess, a bit like cybersecurity, right, or privacy, that it's not a destination, it's a process. You're never going to be perfect. There are always going to be things that need to be added, improved, and made more impactful. So any internal, external audit, every cybersecurity, privacy, legal issue, or failure, it's an opportunity to do better, opportunity to learn, opportunity to automate, reduce people's time spent on these things. As I mentioned before, again, because we touch every business unit, really use it as an opportunity to learn how people work, what matters to them, because a lot of GRC is about soft skills and convincing people that this matters and that we find a way to get information in the easiest way for this unit to provide it to us. We want to make their job easier. There are probably ways where we can help them with some other visibility or prioritization of risks to them. And also remember that there are so many GRC tools, vendors out there, that if your current tooling doesn't work or their approach just doesn't make sense for your company or what you're doing right now, you don't have to stick with it. There's so many options out there. I've seen GRC tooling that approach audits as the main thing to kind of like build the GRC program around. Others that focus on automation, others more on kind of like risk or policy development. They all have their pros and cons, and so it's just up to you what works best for your team, for your company. And also, if it worked for a couple of years, doesn't mean it's going to continue working as you expand. Maybe you have to have more frameworks or different types of things now take more time. So maybe like questionnaire automation is more important now than it was before because you have so many more prospects you have to deal with. So always reevaluate, your processes and especially your tooling, because even a couple of years, it could be like an era shift in our industry or where your company is going, where you could do something a lot more efficiently with a different set of practices or tools.
thank you for that. I believe Angela can now close us up.
All right. Thank you so much, Val, for all the information you've given us. It has been very insightful. We are more than grateful to host you. And I'm sure for everyone who wants to get into the GRC space or who is already in it, has been, like Emily said, edified. Yeah, thank you so much. And for our listeners, please subscribe, comment on our YouTube channel. We'll be more than glad to engage with you. Comment all your GRC incidences or what you recommend for anyone to, any frameworks to try out, or any insights that you want to share. Thank you so much.